Market 2021. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Penrose.
Here.
Director Lohman.
Here.
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Ruddock.
Here.
Director Slater-Carter.
On board.
Chair Dye.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. For public comment, do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
Nope, I haven't received anything from anyone as of now.
All right. So let's move on to item 3, the consent agenda, which is minutes, disbursements, and the revenue and expense report. Anyone want to pull anything off the consent calendar?
Nope.
All right. Can I have?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, can we have a roll call, please?
Director Penrose.
Aye.
Director Lohman.
Yes.
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Ruddock.
Aye.
Director Slater-Carter.
Yes.
Chair Dye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
All right. So that was fast. Let's move on to regular business. Discuss and approve infrastructure plan for fiscal year 2021-22. And Kishan, you want to?
Yes, so it's that time of the year when we talk of budgets. So we've started preparing the general budget, and in order to move forward with the general budget, we would need the infrastructure budget to be finalized because that gets into the general budget. And this is pretty much what we do every year, try to finalize the infrastructure budget, insert that into the general budget, and get the general budget eventually approved. So the board had given directions to SAM staff to prepare a 5-year CIP in the beginning, and therefore a 5-year CIP workshop was conducted on January 29th, considering the SAM assets, which is the plant and the pump station that SAM owns, and of course the intertie pipeline. And based on the discussions which we had at the workshop, which was attended by all the directors, as well as the member agency managers and some of SAM's staff, it was decided that we should go in for a 1-year capital improvement plan and possibly discuss the 5-year CIP at a later date. So with the directions given by the board, SAM staff then put together the same CIP for a 1 year, which is 2021-22. And that is the one which is in the packet, which amounts to about $2,478,320. And a brief description of each of the projects is also mentioned in the staff report, as well as in the packet where detailed project data sheets have been enclosed. And once the 1-year CIP was sent out, member agencies had comments. We had received comments from GCSD manager, and that was replied, and the response was done by SAM staff, and that is also attached in your packet. And subsequent to that, we also received comments from Half Moon Bay, and SAM staff had also responded to that. Gist of it is that the comments addressed particularly two projects, particularly one was on the grid chamber at Montara Pump Station and the aeration basins at plant, for which SAM staff had responded. So the forum is open now for questions, and SAM staff is here to answer anything.
Barbara?
Rick?
In order to get the discussion going formally, I would like to move that to ensure the safety of SAM employees working in the field, I move that we accept and approve the CIP plan for 21-22 that was developed by our staff.
I second that.
Okay. Is there further discussion? I think there
Should be.
two parts of the plan that for which some concerns have been raised. It is my understanding that in talking to the GCSD manager that the grit removal, the pump and the grit removal system at Montara Pump Station. The concerns about that have been taken care of, and that is no longer an issue. Does anyone have an issue with that one?
So that's going to be part of the CIP for this year?
Yes, that's what
Yes,
I'm saying, is
it
that
is.
it's not, there, no concerns have been, the concerns have been resolved about it with
Good.
explanation.
Oh,
Tim was raising his hand.
I didn't realize that one was taken care of. I thought there were still questions regarding it. Sorry.
Yeah,
Carry on.
I think Greg had raised a hand in the beginning.
No, I didn't
Greg
see
did.
that.
Yes.
Greg, would you like to speak?
Well, sorry, I'm coming in here late to the game. And maybe I should be pointed to source documents, but in just looking over this packet, first, I can't understand why we're only doing a 1-year CIP. I mean, it's not standard practice in any of the agencies I've interviewed over the 3 years I've been researching growth, infrastructure, and sustainability. I mean, I don't know how you manage to a 1-year time horizon when stuff could be lurking right around the corner that's important. But the other issue is buried in the text here. There's a crossed out line in the text. It says something about there were only minor comments received from Half Moon Bay or something. I got to find it again. And then that line was crossed out. So I don't understand. I wish I could find it quickly. I don't understand what the implication there is of comments from Half Moon Bay being crossed out.
Who wants to be, Director Reddick?
You're muted.
Muted. Director Reddick, you're muted. Director Reddick, you're
It's on
muted.
page 60. It's on page 64 of the packet.
Showing our comments.
What was that, Deborah? I missed that.
With the staff report, there's an attachment that has a spreadsheet with GSD's comments and a memo from John Dowdy expressing our comments.
And Kisha, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, I'd like to respond to Greg. Yes, the board packet was initially released on Wednesday, the previous of last week, with the comment saying the proposed plan was acceptable with minor comments from Half Moon Bay manager, because SAM staff had received an email from Half Moon Bay Public Works director saying that I'm good to go with the CIP, but I was worried about the aeration basin. I'm not repeating the exact words, but he did say that I was a little concerned about the aeration basin, but I understand it was built because of redundancy, and he left it that way. But he had mentioned that he was okay with going forward with a 1-year CIP. So with that comment in mind, I went ahead and prepared the staff report saying that there were minor comments from Half Moon Bay manager and released the packet on Wednesday. Subsequently, that was on Wednesday afternoon when I released the packet. Subsequently, Wednesday evening, I got these comments from Half Moon Bay Public Works Director, which was a formal comments about not accepting 2 of the projects, which was the grid chamber, concerns about the grid chamber as well as the aeration basin. And therefore, I had made a modification on the staff report on Friday and posted it as an amended staff report. And if you see the title, it clearly says revised staff report. We still were within the 72 hours purview, so therefore I revised it and made it sure just in case somebody was viewing it and found that there was a difference. So I had to strike out that line, and I added saying that the Half Moon Bay comments have been attached and the responses will be given prior to the board meeting. And subsequently on Friday, I was able to prepare a response for the Half Moon Bay comments and attach that separately on the SAM website along with the board packet. So these are all available for public viewing public reading since Friday.
And let me say, on the question of a 5-year CIP, I think the intention is to address it, but it was a very large task for which we didn't have all the information we needed. We do intend to address the 5-year CIP, but in order to keep the budget process moving on at a reasonable rate. I think the consensus was that we would like to get a 1 year resolved before moving on to looking at a 5 year. All right. Do we have other comments on Director Penrose? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, I will be voting to support staff's recommendation to forward the 21-22 capital improvement program to the member agencies. However, please have the minutes reflect that Half Moon Bay's vote on projects 1, 1.01, 1.02, and 1.03 relating to the Montara pump station, and projects 2, 2.01, and 2.02 relating to Portola pump station is under protest, consistent with the resolutions by which the City Council approved prior SAM budgets, and that any Half Moon Bay funding of this and other IPS-related projects is made under protest, and with the understanding that costs spent by the city will be refunded to the city should it prevail in its suit.
Okay. Get that for the minutes? All right. Does anyone have a comment on the aeration basin project? I know that we had agreed at our last meeting to have to issue an RFP for a look at the processes in the plant and to see if they are, what changes need to be made to respond to problems like the BOD problem that we're having. And one option would be to postpone that one item until after that report is received. Does anyone else want to speak to this? Matthew, Director Clark?
I have some questions about the aeration basin as well. First is background. Does the BOD concentration go down when there are big storms and a lot of the I&I comes into the plant?
Yes. Yeah, the BODs go down depending on, as it's more diluted and as the storm water dilutes things out, yes. The short answer is yes, BODs can tend to go down during storm events.
That makes sense, yeah. Currently, can SAM run basins 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time?
No.
No.
How many can you run?
We can either run 1 and 2, or we can run 3. But
Only
trying
3.
to run them all simultaneously, when the plant was built back in whatever, it wasn't really designed for us to have that ability to run all 3 simultaneously. In fact, currently we're having, with 1 and 2 online, we're having issues with aeration as far as our Neuros blowers, the new blowers that we have, the very efficient ones. They have to run it like 100%, and they're barely and sometimes not always meeting the demands, the air demands in the aeration basins. So what we need to do is go to the older Hoffman to try to get that up a little higher. With the Neuros blowers, even though they are dual cores, if we run both cores would be running at 85%. So that would be way too much air. So we have to go back to our older Hoffman blower because it does provide a little bit more air, but we're certainly losing efficiencies. The problem with 1 and 2 is that 1 and 2, they are a very old design and they are prone to washout, as we experienced in the last storm. Now, washout has nothing to do with the BODs, it's the design of the basins. Aeration basin number 3, it's designed in such a manner that it's not prone to washout. It's also the fine air diffusion, so it's a lot more efficient.
What's the capacity of 1 and 2 running together versus 3?
The capacity regarding the volumes?
Yes.
Hang on. I'm not at work, so I'm trying to hobble this stuff together.
Probably 450,000 gallons, close to that. 223.
Yeah, it was like two aeration
223.
basins 1 and 2. So aeration basin 3 is 324,000 gallons. Aeration basin 1 and 2 are 258 or 259,000 gallons each. So
260 times 2, 520.
520. There you go.
So running 1 and 2 actually gives you more capacity for treatment than just 3.
Yeah, but they're not the right design.
Yeah, they're prone to washout, which is problematic, which is, so in January, I think Kishan told you, I'm fairly certain, well, it was in the packet. We had during our last storm in January, we did have washout of the basins in which the storm came and it just sort of washed everything from the aeration basin to the secondary clarifier to the chlorine contact basin to the effluent. So we ended up having a BOD violation in the effluent and a total suspended solids violation in the effluent. And you'll see that in the MPDS report that we provided in the manager's monthly. You'll see that on the 27th. There you go. Yep. We had the effluent TSS was 200, and the effluent BOD was also 200. Now, the 200 in the effluent BOD was a result of the washout, so carrying through all the organic material through to the effluent. So when they did the BOD, which is a 5-day test, the BOD showed that increased oxygen consumption during the test, which gave us the high numbers. And you'll also see that on the effluent, so that was on the 27th, on the 28th, our numbers were back down to normal after the flows had subsided and we got the process back under control. But I would also like to point out that during the time of that washout, that was during a low flow period. So we haven't seen like the high rainstorms that we got last year that happened during the day and through longer periods. This was during a low flow period. This was at like 1 in the morning when our flows are typically low and the storm was not that great. So when I had to report this to the state, one of their first questions was, well, why are we on those basins, aeration basin 1 and 2, if you know they're prone to washout? So I had to explain to them that, well, the reason we're on those is because we needed the additional buffering capacity of the high BODs. Because once it's in the plant, we have there's nothing we can do, right? Well, once the plant's starting to go sideways on us, all we have is buffering capacity. The BODs, it's a old test, so the BODs don't tell us how high the test doesn't tell us how high the BODs are until almost 10 days later. So the only thing we have that we can defend against high BODs is buffering capacity. And the only way that we can meet that is to have more tanks, i.e. more volume online. So that's why we have the 2 aeration basins online. And this was a really long conversation I had to have with the state about why those are online currently and why we had to take the other one offline. Does that answer any of your questions, or did I just confuse you more?
I understood some of that.
Okay.
Well, the washout happened I thought you started by saying this happened when there was the heaviest rain in January, but the washout happened at low flow.
It was during a low flow. Yeah, the storm event that we just had on the 27th of January was during a low flow period.
And when there's a lot of rain, that dilutes the BOD concentration.
Yes, but like I said, even though I don't want to confuse the two things. Just because we have a high influent BOD or the washout is a result of the rain washing the organisms out of the mixed liquor aeration basin through the plant to the effluent. So just because we have, even though the BODs were not necessarily high, during that storm event, that was a result of the design of the aeration basins.
All right, Matthew still has the floor, but then iPad 6 will be next.
Okay.
See your hand. Matthew?
I think that's enough. Thanks.
Okay.
All right, iPad 6, did you want to say something?
Yes, if you know me, I'm George Long. I've been at the plant for 33 years and stuff, and I was just listening to Tim, and Tim was explaining everything quite well. But the one thing he wasn't explaining well is the BOD concentration is still the same. It's just diluted out, so we still are receiving the same amount of solids in. It's just diluted out as percentage is what it is. The other thing about the coarse air is they're good mixers, so they tend to wash out a little better, and they also help with a higher concentration because they won't foul it up. So that's why we need the second aeration basin. So we have the more buffering capacity so we can carry the higher solids for the amount of high BODs that are coming in now. Does that answer help you any? I don't.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
For the Half Moon Bay reps, have your concerns about the aeration basin issue been addressed? Have the Half Moon Bay issues been addressed? Can someone speak to that? No?
Are they froze?
I don't think, I guess.
Oh.
Okay, Director Ruddock, you're muted.
Okay. So we had concerns about, recycled water, actually.
Okay.
Forestalling, precluding recycled water.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're quite a ways away from, I think, resolving that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really needed it for recycled water, I suppose we could go ahead and modify the basin. So we have concerns, but we're willing to go along with it, basically.
I would like to point out in the current MPDS permit, it's actually up for review in this next year, 2022. It actually lays out on page B3 of the MPDS permit, it actually lays out the tanks that were slated at the time that we had talked to the state when we were looking at doing recycled water back then in 2017 when this MPDS permit was adopted. And it actually lays out the old secondary basin and aeration basin number 2, which is the outside one for recycled water storage. So that's actually already in. So the basins that we're looking at, it would not be affected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that was actually made clear in my response too.
yeah, so and we're concerned about certainly about the BOD and making sure that we protect ourselves. So we're not going to challenge it.
Is there any further discussion of the motion?
Looks like Director Slater Carter has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're muted.
I just wanted to say that in discussions with our engineer, the issues that were raised about both the grit tank and the aeration basins reminded me of the kinds of issues that were raised when the Granada force main problems were first brought to light. And we tried to get it approved to get it fixed, and it got put off and put off and put off. And we all know what a mess that was. I don't want to revisit that. And I think these are important projects. I also think that we certainly don't want to pretend that we're following Flint, Michigan's water problems with their processing of the water. And they didn't want to spend the money that they needed. And so they ended up with horrific environmental and public health problems.
Yep.
Sorry, Barbara, but when we put off things that keep the plant functioning, it's very important to realize that if we're going, oh, we can't afford that, maybe we need to stretch and afford it. In talking to an engineer, these aeration basin projects will bring the plant up to the 1998 standards of when it was finished, not the current higher regulatory agency standards. And I think that this is a good first year CIP. It takes care of staff, and it really puts us on the road to taking care of the environment and the public health of the community, which is Sam's job. So,
I mean, the implication that some of us weren't in agreement with doing what the plant needs and so forth is why I made a face, because I think we all care about that, and we're all doing our best to understand and support good projects. And I don't think it's wrong to occasionally raise an issue for further discussion, which is all we were doing.
No, I think further discussions and further study and further evidence are important. And as you know, Barbara, I'm not shy about asking for other opinions. But when it starts looking like these things might not pass, when we're looking at regulatory agency problems because of our history, I get worried. And so I'm going to say that. I'm not accusing anybody, but I am saying that as protectors of the public health, you're right, we all need to do our due diligence, but it's very important to find ways to get these projects done because Sam has been a stepchild for so long.
All right. Any other comments? Matthew, Director.
What I've been trying to understand is why the plant ran 25, 30 years with one aeration basin. And now we have this 1 year CIP, at the end of which I believe we'll have 4 aeration basins. How could we need 4 when we've gotten by with 1 for all this time? And I further, Barbara, Director Dye already brought this up, but I would like to see no real movement on this particular item until that the plant procedures study comes back and tells us if we should do this really.
Or more.
Or more, yeah.
So that's I think our issue is we're paying to have a study to see what we need in this area, and it seems a little premature to do this, but I'm actually prepared to support this, but I think it's fair to raise these questions, and I don't think it's reasonable to accuse other directors of not caring about public safety or the environment. So that concerns me. Any more comments on this? We have a motion on the floor. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Penrose, you're muted.
Aye.
Director Lohman.
Yes.
Director Clark.
Well, I'm going to vote yes, but on the aeration basin 4, unless we're sure that this won't be moved on until we get that study done and we all absorb it and appreciate what it says, I'm voting no on that one.
Director Radak. You're muted.
I'm having problems with my functions here. It shows me unmuted. Then when I unmute myself, it shows me as muted.
Oh. No.
Okay, what was your response, Director?
Aye.
Okay, Director Slater Carter.
Yes.
Chair Dye.
I share Matthew's concern about not moving ahead before we have this study that is looking at this. But I think in the interest of getting this moving forward, I'm going to vote yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
So that's unanimous and everything, but I'm not opposed to looking at the study. I mean, that's what we're doing the study for. I don't think we have to immediately go out and replace everything before the study even starts. So if,
But we'll be paying Sam money to do this project immediately, our share of the budget once the budget's passed. But we'll have a chance to look at it when the budgets come to us too, which is partly why I voted yes. So
that's fine.
And I have to compliment staff and everyone involved in this. I think it's a really good set of projects for us to do. It's going to really improve a lot of the equipment. I agree with Catherine that there are things that need to be repaired that I think we're finally are being taken care of. And so I want to thank you for doing a good job. I also want to say that one of the things that we have been stressing, at least since I've been involved, is that we want to have at least an opportunity for input from the agency managers if they should choose to do it, included in some of the decision making. Doesn't mean that they get to make the decisions, but they should make the recommendations. And this time, though the timing was a little difficult, we got this process started that says that will be part of the process, that there are comments, and then staff, as they did, will respond, and then the board will make a decision based on the SAM staff and the response to the comments. So I think it's a better process. It gives us a little more perspective on it, and I would just like to compliment Kishan and everyone involved in putting this together.
You're here.
Thank you.
Yep, I agree. And to answer Matthew's question, the SAM plant was finished decades ago, and then it was refinished 2 decades plus ago. And there have been other things that we've been spending money on, but not on the full load of maintenance and repair of things that need to be done. And so things have been postponed, they've been bandaged, they've been all of that stuff. That's part of the problem, and I've gotten this from talking to a fair number of people. And since then, in the last 23 years, standards have gone up, and that's also a problem. The regulatory standards have shifted a whole lot, and SAM has to keep up with maintaining those as well. So that's why these costs are coming up. It's kind of like sorry about the dog, fixing holes in a roof or in a car or something, and just keeping it so it's functioning.
Okay, thank you. One other question I would like to maybe throw out for a bit of discussion is the question of, to Kishan, is it your intention to bring back the remaining years of the 5-year CIP at some point in the next few months for us to look at? Or do you feel there's a lot of other things on your plate that, how do you see the timing? Because we did plan to do a 5-year CIP, and I agree with Greg that that's a valuable thing. How do you see us moving forward with that?
Honestly, I have no idea as to what the comments are on the 5-year CIP. I did not receive any comments on the rest of the items. So as far as staff is concerned, we've given adequate information in the project data sheets and spelled out about the projects. So if there are concerns from the managers or from the board for the rest of the items on the 5-year CIP, we can then work on completing it and bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Sounds like the ball's in our court.
Yeah. I'd like to see, when we ask for comments from managers, a deadline date, and for the board to take a policy that if a manager doesn't, or the public for that matter, doesn't get a comment in by the deadline date, that it's been deemed they have no other questions, so that we can keep our budget process moving forward. We've worked hard on getting our budget process so we can get it to the managers on time, and this is a critical part. Now the other 4 years of the CIP won't impact that, but I think there's going to be a lot of questions, and we need to give Kishan and staff time to be able to answer them so they're not getting slammed at the end.
I agree with that, but we are improving the process, and I appreciate the fact that several of the managers gave comments in writing. Director Clark?
Well, first, I have a question, but my first comment is on items, I don't understand why items 8 and 9 are not co-joined. It seems weird the way that these things are split. But my question really is on item 8 says replace influent pumps and motors 1 through 5. And then item 9 is electrical improvements for pumps 1 through 8. How many influent pumps are there?
8.
And we're only replacing the 5 of the pumps, but the electricals on all of them?
Are 3 of the pumps newer?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this was my own not paying attention, I guess. I thought there were only 5.
I just want to offer up, if Director Clark wants to come to the facility, and I can walk you through and I can explain whatever questions that you might have. If you want to do it that way, it might actually be easier because then you can look at it and I can sort of explain things. I mean, I'm a stone's throw away. I'm available 7 days a week. So
I took the tour. It was very good.
There's no popcorn, but.
Any other?
Okay, I'll take you up on that, Tim. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Matthew, anything further? Clarifying questions?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Congratulations. Moving on. General Manager's report.
We have the detailed report in the packet. Any questions we can answer, but just to give you a quick update on the wet weather storage expansion. We got the pipes today. We are getting the concrete boxes on Wednesday, and the project seems to be progressing. The contractor has been doing a good job taking care of all the BMPs and the best management practices he has followed during the rains, and we didn't have any upsets, and everything seems to be going fine.
Good.
If you have any questions on the packet which was attached, staff is here to answer those questions.
Catherine, was that you raising your hand?
That's me raising my hand. I wanted to thank Tim and ask Keishan to please, and the rest of the staff to please acknowledge Tim's photos that are going up on Nextdoor of the wet weather project. They are terrific, and it appears a lot of people are interested in these, and I just thought I think it's a really nice way for people who are going to be driving, so many drive past this anyway, and they're kind of going, oh, what's that going on? It's not a skyscraper with real deep, like in San Francisco, with a real deep foundation. This is actually a really good project. And Tim, I thank you so much for putting it out there so people can read about it and keeping the photos updated.
I agree. Great job. I wanted to say just, I know collections is, talks about the month before, but we had a backup I have an apartment in the basement of my house, and there was a backup, and called the collection staff, and they came right over and checked the clean out and so forth. And they just are so pleasant to work with and competent. It was really great. So thank you very much. Turned out we had to deal with it with a plumber, which I think is clearly the result that most often happens. But still, it's nice to have that support and backup from Sam to check to make sure it's not a problem further down the line. So thank you to them.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to attorney's report.
Yes, let me just get back in. I'm trying to find a piece of legislation. There is just one thing to note. There is a large bond measure being considered. I believe it's SB 45, but it's going to be another omnibus bonds considered in 2022. So maybe something to take a look at to see if any of Sam's projects potentially might qualify for that. It's focused on resilience. Oh, I could stop. But anyways, that's one issue. And then I was going to
address. Wait, maybe we should have Director Roddick. I think she wants to speak to that specific issue.
Sure.
Director Roddick.
Yeah, so there are actually two bonds now. There's SB 45, which is approximately 5.5 billion. And then introduced on Friday is AB 1500, which the authors are Assemblymember Garcia and Assemblymember Mullen, who represents a portion of the Midcoast. And this one is 6.7 billion. And I've looked at detail at AB 1500, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there, including some provisions regarding, recycled water and, shoring up infrastructure to protect against sea level rise and climate change impacts. So I think it's worth the attorney, maybe the attorney and Keishan, or maybe the finance committee reviewing it and identifying all those areas that look fruitful for SAM, because there's a lot in there. It's huge. It should be 10 billion, as far as I'm concerned. But I think it's an improvement on SB 45. And it's carefully thought out, it's very comprehensive. I think we need to work on positioning ourselves. It's to be put on the ballot for 2022. So, which means that it would not be in the budget until 23, 24. But, we have a couple of years to, plan improvements and look ahead. So.
Does the city have a lobbyist under retainer?
We do. It's Towns and Affairs. Yeah.
Oh, you have okay. They're pretty involved. But Sam does not, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So, certainly, Townsend is looking out for all of the city's interests, including sewer, wastewater, and all that infrastructure. So we can certainly keep an eye out. And, but I mean, if Sam has input, the city should know about that. And, the city's ledge committee can work with the lobbyists to make sure that, all of our needs are represented.
Okay. Well, maybe I can work with Kishan just to take a look at, I was unaware of 1500. A different client had asked me to look at SB 45. So that's, maybe we can talk about that and see where there might be opportunities, and we can circle back with the board on that.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of negotiating, and I'm guessing that the amount will probably go up for a while before it comes back down. The resulting bond's probably going to be somewhere between 5.5 and 6.7. But we want to play. If you're not at the table, you're going to be eaten. And San Mateo County, for some reason, blew off engagement with Proposition 12, the Parks and Water Bond, back in 2002. It's the only county that did not have an allocation in the bond. So they really, I think Sam might look into joining the Water Bond Coalition. It's a group of, it started out, it was just North Coast, north of the bridge. But it's expanded down into, the Central Coast. They're a coalition interested in bond funds for water and wastewater and natural resources restoration. And I can send some links. You have to adopt a resolution to be part of it, but they have their own very excellent lobbyist, which is Conservation Strategies Group. It's now Joe Caves. And Joe Caves is always
Joe Caves.
Joe Caves is always the principal person providing input into all these bonds. So, and it doesn't cost any money. You just got to pass a resolution. And there's actually a conference call. I participate in my day job on I think it's the 2nd. I think it's 9 a.m. on March 2nd. With Joe Caves to update everybody on the bonds, and he'll probably make some recommendations. So we're not going to be able to pass this resolution before that March 2nd meeting, but I think we might want to agendize joining the coalition, at one of our March meetings. They really have a lot of clout.
Well, we could add it as an urgency item if we have to take action before then, if the board was so
Yeah,
inclined.
I
this
would
is
support
key.
that.
You would support that?
I absolutely, and Debbie, thank you for that. I'm going to bring that up with Clemens tomorrow and get MWSD. I doubt if there's any hesitancy on joining this. The more we can keep these things moving, the better.
Yeah, so today at our San Mateo County Flood and Sea Level Rise Resiliency District meeting, we adopted a resolution so that we could participate on the 2nd. So
Yeah, if the board wanted to, I'd need a motion and a second to add it, I guess a resolution to join the water, is it called the Water Bond Coalition? Is that right?
Water Bond Coalition.
Okay. So you could add as an urgency item, it would be appropriate because the information just came to the attention of the board and action would be required before the next board meeting.
Do we need the language of the resolution? Or if we just,
It's actually on their website. So right now, Keisha or Jeremy could Google Water Bond Coalition, join us, I think is a tab, and it has a sample resolution.
great.
So moved. Do
Can we
have
have wait, can we have a motion to add it to the agenda as an urgency?
So
I just made the movement.
Second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call on adding it to the agenda as an urgency item?
Director Penrose,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Roddick,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Chair Dye.
Yes. So can we, shall we finish your report and go on to a couple, see if there's anything further, director's reports or anything, and then if you can find the resolution for us?
Well, I mean, what you could do is just, well, let's see here. So we have to, I mean, you could authorize the general manager. I'm just trying to think how we normally do resolutions.
Well, couldn't we just authorize approval of the resolution as shown on the Water Bond Coalition
Yes.
website?
Yeah, it probably
that.
needs to be customized a little bit, like
Right.
and all that stuff.
Subject to minor modifications by the general manager and the general counsel.
Okay, state my motion again for me, Jeremy.
Okay. Board authorizes, or the board approves a resolution as indicated on the Water Bond Coalition website, subject to such minor modifications as may be recommended by the general manager and general counsel.
I'll second
We have
that.
a second, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, roll call vote, sorry.
Director Penrose,
Aye.
Director Loman,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Roddick,
Yes.
Director Slater Carter,
Aye.
Chair Dye.
And say hi to Joe Caves for me. I'm sure he'll remember me. I got a lot of money through him for open space preservation. He was really great to work with. So
I want to say we have had some items on our agenda that have taken, it seems like years. This is the fastest agenda item I have ever seen on any board that I have ever looked at. I'm really impressed,
It's not even on the agenda. We added it.
right?
all right.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually have bond breakdowns for both bills showing all of the allocation categories. So I can send that to send those to Keisha, and then he can send them out to the board and Jeremy.
Great.
That'd be great.
Thank
We
you.
have you. We're lucky to have your knowledge in this area.
Benefits all of us, you know.
Yeah. Just real quick, board members, just while I'm still on the attorney's report, at the last meeting, we had added a different urgency item dealing with the basin plan amendment. And in any event, we were able to, the regional board did make the requested changes. They were minor, just clarifying changes, but it should hopefully prevent any future confusion as to how we work together to implement the various things that we're required to do under the basin plan amendment.
Maybe we could bring back a report on what we have to do at a meeting fairly soon.
Well, that'd be, Kishan could certainly do that.
Yes.
that be all right? I think it'd be good for us to look at that.
Okay.
And I think for Sam, it's actually relative. It's not going to be a big deal, but it's going to really hit Granada.
Yeah. I have nothing further to report.
Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you then.
Oh, no. Please feel free.
Directors reports. Do we have any directors reports? Director Lohman.
Real quick report on our 2040 committee. We had a real short meeting, but lots of interesting info. Future looks that we will be looking at both little plants like was presented at the SAM meeting, plus also what it would take to rehab SAM if we want to move forward with that. One of the interesting things that have come up, they all include recycled water. The interesting thing we've learned in a couple of weeks is that it's not the simple thing of these plants create solid waste and perfect water. The perfect water can be all kinds of different waters, but there's also this stuff called brine, which either has to be further processed or shipped someplace else. So we have to look into that. We're going to be looking at some plants who are already doing all of this and talking to them about what do you do with the brine and all this other stuff. So that will all be moving forward. And then we'll get around to our next meeting pretty soon.
Great, well done. Anything further from you? Okay, Director Slater-Carter.
Unmute.
Thank you. Last week on Wednesday, MWSD had a public workshop on our sewer system. I highly recommend folks watch it because it got into, this is what a sewer plant is in the basics, and then it talked about a lot of the concerns, future concerns for SAM. It's on Pacifica TV, and I think it is supposed to be on Coastside Buzz as well. On March 3rd, we're going to be doing one on water. And it's part of our ongoing work on educating our public on how complex these kinds of things are, and the importance of protecting watersheds and how to treat things. We had quite a number of people who were interested, and I have put it out on Nextdoor. I should figure out how to put a link on it because I was really impressed by what our staff put together. And again, I think so many people think this is just silly, simple stuff, and it's not. And it's getting ever more complex. So again, it's available for viewing at least on Pacific Coast TV, and then it will be available for watching. Please sign in on March 3rd.
That sounds like very excellent. Anything further for directors' reports? Moving on to topics for future board consideration. Anything to say on that? Director Slater-Carter?
Unmute. I would like to see a regular agenda item and discussion on the remaining 4 years of the 5-year CIP. I think it's very important that we handle this in a very considered fashion so that people don't feel pushed into making decisions, and that we have a very complete staff reports and record of alternatives and what's being done. I appreciate, Barbara, that you have asked for the opinions of the managers to be included in these. It's in the staff reports and in these discussions. It's very educational. And I also appreciate that your point of view that hearing lots of different opinions is very worthwhile. That's certainly, I think, the opinion of everyone here, and the importance of having our staff and this board make the final decisions. But I'd like to see that as a fairly consistent, regular, ongoing agenda item. So when we get to this time next year, it's just oh, yeah, that one, sure, why not?
Well, at this point, I would like to defer to Kishan of when he wants to bring it back. And I think he does want us to, I'm going to throw this to you in a second, but I'd just like to defer to our manager as to when it works for him to bring this back to us again.
Okay, I can check it out with the member agency managers and see what time frame they would like to have to pass on the comments to me. And thereafter, I can bring it back to the board.
Okay. It's complicated. 4 more years. This was complicated. 4 more years is even more complicated. So let's take our time to do it right. But
sure.
Let's get
And
it done. I agree with you.
I would also like the board to adopt a policy on public comment and area and I call them MAMs, the member agency managers, getting back to Sam in a timely fashion with a deadline so that the work of Sam can continue on without needing to wait on someone.
Okay. Anything further on board consideration? All right, I guess we will adjourn this and go to closed session.
It'd just be a short one.
Okay, so
Thank you, everyone.